They pushed her from behind, laughed when she fell face first into the trench, filmed it, circulated it, called her a joke. But what they didn't realize was that silence doesn't mean surrender, and discipline doesn't need noise, because the very next day, she called them into the bay. No warnings, no speeches, just a demonstration of what happens when you try to humiliate a Navy SEAL from behind. Now, before we show you the footage that shut an entire base up, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We read every single one. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next mission. And stay right here, because what happened next wasn't retaliation, it was correction. The gravel crunched under 50 pairs of boots. Pre-dawn sprinklers had left everything damp. Dark patches still glistening under sodium lights that buzzed too loud in the morning quiet. SEALs and Marines stood in staggered rows. Breaths even, back straight, eyes locked forward. The air smelled like wet nylon and rust. Lieutenant Commander Rowena Vale stood at the front, 8-point cover low on her brow, clipboard in one gloved hand. Her voice came out measured, crisp, no performance. Today's rotation, trench drag, vertical rope climb, cargo crawl. Standard duration is 11 minutes. Pairings are pre-assigned. Inter-service. Questions. Nothing. Just the hum of floodlights overhead and boots shifting on wet stone. She nodded once. Then let's proceed. She turned to step off the platform. That's when the voice cut through from the left column. Careful, boys. Looks like SEAL Barbie's got her war face on. Laughter rippled through the front row, controlled, just enough to land. Staff Sergeant Dean Riker stood with his arms folded, smirk carved deep. He wasn't new, wasn't young. He knew exactly what tone carried and what didn't. Rowena turned her head. One glance, that's all. Out here, rank outranks gender. Then she turned away like he'd said nothing at all. The silence stretched. Thin, tight, Riker scoffed. Guess we'll find out if the war doll can keep her uniform clean today. She didn't flinch. Didn't even pause. But in the third row, Petty Officer Mendez shifted his jaw. He'd seen it, the way she clocked him without looking, the way she let his ego burn itself in public. She walked off the platform, clipboard tucked under one arm. Behind her, instructors started calling names. The course loomed in the background. Black mud pits, rope ladders slick with morning dew, platforms dappled in shadow. No one would leave clean. That wasn't the point, but already something felt wrong. This wasn't rivalry. It was sharper than that. Riker muttered low to the Marine beside him. We'll see how long the lipstick stays on once she hits the dirt. The Marine didn't laugh, not loudly anyway, because even in that stillness, something about Rowena Vale's silence didn't feel like submission. It felt like patience. And patience? It doesn't mean weakness. It just waits for the right correction. The obstacle pit sat carved into the far corner of the yard. Sandbags lined the edges. Barbed half cages framed the perimeter like something ripped out of a deployment zone. Late morning now, sun higher, heat sharper. The trench water had started to steam. Pairs of recruits rotated through crawl drills and rope lines, while instructors timed each lap. The air stank of wet webbing and sun-baked gear. Rowena stood near the central trench, arms crossed behind her back, watching a SEAL Marine duo struggle through the vertical hoist. One of them slipped, cursed under his breath. She made a note on the clipboard without a word. Behind her, Riker lingered, not assigned, not stationed, just hovering. He wasn't holding a stopwatch, wasn't checking rosters like the other instructors. He'd offered to assist after the briefing, but everyone knew why he was really there. Rowena crouched near the rope line to check a carabiner mount. Mud had gummed up the clip. She tapped it twice with her pen. That's when he moved. Want some backup, ma'am? Riker called out. Loud, oily. He was close now, too close, standing just behind her while she knelt over the line. A few Marines glanced over, half interested, half smirking. Rowena stood, calm, stepped left, past him, not around him. And that was enough. The shove came fast, 2 hands, high between her shoulder blades, forceful, calculated. She pitched forward without warning. Boots skidded, knees hit the edge, then her whole body, shoulder, chest, face splashed into the waist-deep muck. The sound was wet, loud. A collective oof echoed from nearby recruits. Silence. Then the laughter started. Short bursts at first, shocked, then rolling. Then phones came out. One of the younger Marines didn't even bother hiding it. He raised his phone, pressed record. Another turned his screen toward a buddy, dark silhouette rising from mud, arms slick, hair matted, clipboard floating just out of reach. Damn! She went down hard. Bet that trench was cleaner before she hit it. From across the pit, Torres stepped forward. Cut it! He snapped. No one listened. Rowena stood slowly, her movements precise. No flailing, no flinch. Mud dripped from her sleeve, her hair stuck in clumps to her face. Her right boot had half vanished in the sludge. The clipboard floated nearby, warped and soaked. She retrieved it, shook once, then turned to face the group. Her voice didn't rise. Training continues. She stepped back into position, didn't look at Riker, didn't wipe her face, just stared down the next team in line and gave the order. Hoist, begin. Then walked toward the equipment table. Phones lowered. The laughter stopped too late, but it had already been recorded, and in that silence, 1,000 frames of footage were quietly saved to gallery rolls and backup drives, none of them realizing the stillness in her face was the part they'd remember, not the fall. By lunch, the video had reached the Marine barracks. Corporal Vance sat on his footlocker, watching the clip loop for the third time on his bunkmate's phone. Around him, 5 other Marines crowded close, some laughing, others just watching with arms folded. Riker really went for it, someone muttered. About time someone knocked her off that high horse, another added. But Vance wasn't laughing. He kept watching the moment after the splash. The way she stood, the way her face didn't change, how she bent down, picked up that ruined clipboard, and just said 2 words, "Training continues." You see that? Vance said, pointing at the screen. She didn't even react. His bunkmate shrugged. So? She's probably just embarrassed. No. Vance rewound it. Played it again. That's not embarrassment. That's something else. Across the compound in the SEAL ready room, the mood was different. 3 SEAL candidates sat near the gear lockers, voices low. Petty Officer Mendez leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight across his chest. How many people you think have seen it? One asked. Enough, Mendez said, and they're all missing the point. Which is? Mendez looked up. His jaw was set. She let him do it. She could have stepped left, right, turned around. She saw him coming, but she let him push her. The youngest candidate frowned. Why would she do that? Because now it's documented. Now it's not his word against hers. It's video evidence of a Marine instructor assaulting a SEAL officer during a regulated drill. Mendez pushed off the wall. And if I know Commander Vale, she's not done. She's just getting started. Another candidate leaned forward. You served under her before? 2 rotations, Jordan Extract Mission 2021. She took a knife wound to the shoulder, pulling a downed pilot out of a hot zone. Didn't say a word, just kept moving. Didn't even report it until we were wheels up. He paused. Riker thinks he embarrassed her. What he actually did was give her a reason to recalibrate the entire standard. Silence settled all over the group. Then one of them spoke quietly. What do you think happens next? Mendez didn't answer right away. He just looked toward the window, toward the admin building where Commander Tate's office sat on the 2nd floor. Something precise, he finally said. The base laundry bay wasn't built for quiet, but by late evening, it came close. Most of the day's training gear had already cycled through. Overhead lights hummed yellow. One flickered near the end dryer, where someone had duct taped the timer into permanent overtime. Rowena stood in the back corner, sleeves rolled, collar open, mud-stained jacket bunched in her left hand like something dead she'd dragged in from the field. She worked silently, scrubbing the outer layer first, heavy sludge soaked into the shoulder and spine where she'd landed, small circles with her thumb and a bristle brush. She didn't slam the basin, didn't curse, didn't even shift posture, just small methodical circles. Steam rolled up from the sink, brown runoff circled the drain. Behind her, the door hissed open. Footsteps, rubber soles on linoleum. Hesitant. I figured you'd be in here. She didn't turn. Torres. Petty Officer Miguel Torres stepped closer. SEAL medic, about 10 years younger than her, still carried his kit off duty like someone might drop mid-sentence. He reached the sink beside hers but didn't wash anything. "The video's everywhere," he said. Started as a joke, then the caption changed. To what? She didn't even flinch. Rowena didn't answer. She wrung out the sleeve once, hung it over the overhead pipe, moved to the cargo trousers next, caked through the knees. "You could report him," Torres said. "Why? It's already documented." "You didn't document it." "They did." He watched her a moment longer, then reached into his jacket and pulled out something wrapped in microfiber. A phone. Not hers. Not his. "Found this on the bleacher bench after the pit," he said. "Forgotten. Unlocked. Videos timestamped and geotagged. Matches the main trench. Includes audio." She turned for the first time, one eyebrow slightly raised. "You stole a Marine's phone?" "I confiscated evidence. I'm a medic. I can claim concern." Rowena looked down at the scrub brush, then at her still dirty trousers. She folded the phone into her towel pile without a word and turned back to the sink. "Let them keep spreading it," she said quietly. "Proof has weight. Weight crushes noise." Torres didn't smile, just nodded once and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "You know Commander Tate's going to hear about this. Probably before you even dry those sleeves. Then he'll know where to find me." The door shut behind him. Rowena stood alone again, elbow deep in silence. The sink bubbling faintly with detergent and what was left of that morning's arrogance. She didn't scrub harder. She scrubbed smarter. By 0500 the next morning, the video had gone through 3 title changes and crossed into 2 separate chain of command group chats. First version was crude. Lady SEAL eats mud after giving orders. Second version, edited tighter, added slow motion and fake crowd sound. The third had no caption at all, just the raw clip. A woman in uniform shoved face first into a trench, standing up without a single word. That one spread fastest. In the Marine wing, it was still being played aloud on breakfast trays. You see her expression? Like a damn robot. Didn't even blink. That's freakier than the fall. Riker held court at a corner table, still laughing like the joke hadn't worn thin. She wanted to lead like the boys, so she took the hit like one. His tone was half justified, half nervous now. One of the younger Marines glanced down at his coffee. Didn't respond. "Relax," Riker said, waving his fork. "It's not like she broke anything. She'll be back with a fresh jacket and a clipboard like nothing happened." Across the compound, the atmosphere was different. In the SEAL medic bay, Torres sat outside the supply office, back against concrete, fingers scrolling silently through the confiscated phone. He copied the original file to a secure server, timestamp intact, no edits, no music, no punchlines, just truth. And that's what he carried when he walked across the admin quad, through the steel double doors of Command Wing Bravo, and into the office of Commander Rowena Tate. Tate looked up once from his desk. Didn't ask why Torres was there, just tilted his chin. Go ahead. The phone played on silent. One push, 17 seconds, no color correction, no commentary, just a Marine instructor shoving a SEAL officer into mud during training. Laughter, phones, the silent rise of Rowena Vale soaked and upright, saying, "Training continues." Torres spoke only once. "I figured if anyone needed to see the original, it was you." Tate didn't look up from the phone. His eyes tracked every second, paused the clip, rewound, watched it again, no expression. Just the way someone studies an incoming storm on radar, not with surprise, with logistics. "Who else has this version?" he asked. "Just me. And probably a dozen others who don't know what they're sitting on." Tate set the phone down gently. "That ends now. Secure the file. Email it to my comms terminal." "I want a clean review log by 1100. Torres nodded. "She didn't ask for anything, sir. She won't." "So what happens next?" Tate looked back at the paused frame. Mud on her collar. Eyes forward. Clipboard hanging off her wrist like a dead weight she refused to drop. "We run a demonstration," he said. "Not to defend her. To correct them." Word spread fast through unofficial channels. By 1600 hours, every Marine and SEAL on base knew something was scheduled for the warehouse. The official notice was vague, joint training correction drill, but everyone understood what it really meant. Someone was about to get corrected, and everyone wanted to see who. Outside the warehouse at 1645, a small crowd had already gathered, not officially, just Marines and SEALs drifting toward the building in twos and threes, standing near the entrance, pretending they had business nearby. Corporal Vance stood with his arms crossed, watching the door. His bunkmate Jensen shifted nervously beside him. "You really think this is about the trench?" Jensen asked. "What else would it be about?" "I don't know. Maybe just a standard drill. Maybe we're reading too much into it." Vance didn't answer. He was watching a senior SEAL instructor, someone he didn't recognize, walk past them toward the warehouse door. The man's face was unreadable, but there was something in the way he moved. Purpose. Like he was going to watch something that mattered. Jensen lowered his voice. "You think Riker knows what's coming?" "He knows. He just thinks he's untouchable." From behind them, another voice cut in. "He's not." They turned. A Marine gunnery sergeant they'd seen around but never spoken to stood a few feet away. Older, weathered, the kind of face that had seen too much to be impressed by much. "You know Commander Vale?" Vance asked. The gunny nodded once. "Worked joint ops with her unit in 19 Helmand Province. We were pinned down in a compound for 6 hours. 3 casualties, no medevac available. She walked out into open fire to retrieve a wounded Marine. Took 2 rounds to her vest. Didn't stop moving." He paused. "When she finally got him back inside, you know what she said?" Vance shook his head. "Next one moves faster." The gunny looked toward the warehouse door. "She doesn't do revenge. She does adjustment. And adjustment's worse." Jensen swallowed. "You think she's gonna hurt him?" The gunny almost smiled. "I think she's gonna teach him. And trust me, that's worse." He walked past them toward the entrance. Vance and Jensen stood in silence for a moment. Then Jensen spoke quietly. "We're going to watch, right?" "Yeah," Vance said. "We're going to watch." Inside the warehouse, the temperature had already dropped. The warehouse was colder than it looked. Stripped of equipment racks and transport pallets, it felt like a stage now. Bare concrete, ceiling fans idle, red hazard lines taped around the perimeter for liability. Someone had mopped the floor before sunrise. The surface gleamed faintly beneath rows of overhead fluorescents. No mud, no trenches, just space, clean, echoing, unavoidable space. Rowena stood near the wall, arms folded behind her back, uniform pressed, no clipboard, hair tied back tighter than usual, not a wrinkle out of place. Riker entered last, half laughing with 2 Marines, ego already humming. He wore the same fatigues from yesterday, sleeves rolled, jaw set with the confidence of someone who believed the game hadn't changed. Commander Tate stood on a raised platform near the far wall, holding a notepad, flanked by 2 junior officers with tablet recorders. "This is a controlled correctional demonstration," Tate announced. "Documented per training regulation. The objective is instructional, not punitive." His voice didn't rise, but the words cut clean. Riker smirked. "Planning to teach etiquette, ma'am?" he called out, projecting just enough for it to carry. Rowena stepped forward 1 pace. Her boots echoed. "No. Balance." Pause. She turned toward the 2 Marines already standing by the demonstration zone, volunteers from earlier drills. Neither looked eager. One shifted his footing, the other nodded once. Tate signaled the camera operators. They tapped record. Rowena gave a single command. "Engage as instructed." The first Marine moved in, shoulder feint followed by a high arm grab. Standard hand-to-hand testing sequence. She let him overextend, then redirected his weight with a lateral hip shift, placed him on his back with a hollow thud. He lay still for a beat, blinking up at the ceiling lights. Tate's voice, control confirmed, reset. The second moved with more caution, tried to sweep her leg while grabbing her collar. Common correction tactic. She turned with it, braced against his elbow, folded him down using his own posture angle. No noise, no flare. Clinical. She stepped back, breathing steady, uniform immaculate. This wasn't dominance, this was calibration. Riker leaned forward now, hands on hips, mask cracking. We're calling that a fight? Rowena turned slightly. You're welcome to participate, Sergeant. A beat passed. Then he stepped forward. Torres, standing behind Tate with arms crossed, muttered low. Here it comes. They faced off at center mat. Riker rolled his shoulders like he was walking into a sparring match. Rowena didn't move. Tate raised a hand. You both know the limits. One contact round. No strikes, no takedowns beyond rotation control. Rowena answered, even, understood. Riker grinned. Let's see what the war dolls got. No one laughed, because everyone saw it already. How still she was. How measured. Tate dropped his hand. Riker started with performance. He circled first, feet loud against concrete, arms loose at his sides, like he was warming up for a match he thought he'd already won. His jaw moved like he was still smirking, even if the expression didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Rowena stood perfectly still in the center, hands down, elbows loose, no stance, just centered, balanced, waiting. You sure you're ready for this, ma'am? He called out. Don't want to mess up your hair. No response. Tate gave a nod from the sideline. Begin. Riker moved first, deliberate, slow. He stepped forward with a wide stance, reached for her collarbone with one arm, testing reaction time. She didn't move. He stepped back. One of the Marines near the wall muttered, He's showboating. Another replied, No, he's buying time. Then came the real move. Riker turned halfway, backing off like the exchange was over. Then suddenly pivoted and lunged with both arms, fast and low, from behind. It was the exact same shove, high between the shoulder blades, same angle, same aggression, the kind you only throw when you think someone's off guard. Except this time, she wasn't. Rowena dropped low, let his momentum carry through, caught his arm mid-thrust and spun out hard on her right foot. The motion was so fast and so clean it almost looked staged. His boots left the floor. One shoulder hit the concrete with a slap. She stayed standing. In one motion, she dropped her left knee into his ribs, not hard, just enough to pin, and used his own wrist to torque him flat. His face twisted, shock overriding bravado. She leaned in, voice low enough for him to hear, and the cameras to catch. That's why you never attack from behind. Silence swallowed the entire warehouse. Not a cough, not a shuffle, just the mechanical whir of two cameras recording every breath of the reversal. Rowena stood. She adjusted her collar with one hand, turned back toward the observers, stepped away without glancing down. Riker stayed on the ground for a moment longer than he had to. When he finally got up, he didn't look at anyone. His face was red, not from exertion. One of his Marines offered him a hand. He ignored it. Tate stepped forward now, tone even as ever. Demonstration concluded. All movements observed. Within regulation. Control confirmed. He looked down at his tablet. Click stop recording. Handed it off without fanfare. Rowena didn't say a word. She walked to the edge of the floor and stood near the entrance. Spine straight. Eyes forward. Exactly like she had on the parade ground the day before, but this time no one said a thing. No snide remarks, no laughter, no phones out, just silence. Thick, collective, irreversible. Torres, standing in the back, let out a long breath through his nose. Well, he muttered. Guess that's on tape, too. From the center of the room, Riker still hadn't spoken. His ego had taken a harder fall than his body, and this time everyone had watched it happen without commentary, without excuses, and without edits. And the real difference? This time no one laughed, because now they knew. She hadn't needed strength, she'd just needed timing. And that was always hers to control. The conference room smelled like ozone and dry erase markers, windowless, overhead lighting flat and clinical. A single steel table stretched the length of the space, flanked by chairs that made too much noise when pushed back. Nobody sat comfortably in that room, not even the officers with rank bars on their collars. At the head, Commander Tate flipped open a slim black folder, marked with today's date and the emblem of the Joint Training Oversight Council. Two junior officers sat beside him, one typing silently, the other holding a printed transcript of the warehouse demonstration. Across the table sat Riker and the two Marines who'd hovered nearest him throughout the week. They weren't laughing anymore. Their posture had shifted from relaxed defiance to rigid compliance. One had his hands folded. The other kept glancing at the screen in front of Tate like it might blink out and save them. Rowena sat at the far end, back straight, uniform neat, arm resting gently on the table's edge, not controlling the room, not performing for it, just present. Tate didn't open with questions. He turned the screen. First, the trench clip. No edits, no cuts, just the original file from the confiscated Marine phone. Riker's voice. "Careful, boys. Don't let Seal Barbie get too close to the edge." Then the shove. Then the splash. Then the moment she rose. Mud soaking her collar. Her voice calm. Training continues. The room stayed silent. Then Tate cued the second clip. The warehouse footage from less than 24 hours earlier. Multi-angle, center floor takedown, Riker's full-speed shove, and Rowena's pivot, throw, and pin in under 5 seconds. Her words echoed through the audio. "That's why you never attack from behind." Tate paused the playback just as she turned away. He looked at Riker. "Do you believe this demonstration was exaggerated or misrepresented?" Riker hesitated. "Sir, I believe tensions got high, but nothing done was out of protocol." Tate nodded. "Let me rephrase. Do you believe shoving a superior officer into a trench during regulated instruction for the purpose of group humiliation qualifies as acceptable behavior in your training doctrine?" One of the Marines beside Riker flinched. Riker's voice was smaller now. "It was not meant to escalate, sir." Tate closed the folder. "Intent is not what's on trial here. Impact is." He looked toward the two Marines. "You participated in the spread of unauthorized training footage. You filmed a superior being assaulted and laughed. You will both be written up under Article 15. 2. Digital misconduct and unit discredit. Your phones are now evidence." Then, to Riker, "You are hereby suspended from all joint training operations, pending formal review by the Command Advisory Board, effective immediately." Riker's jaw moved, but no sound came. Finally, Tate turned toward Rowena. "Lieutenant Commander Vale, your restraint in the field and during both incidents was exemplary. Command has prepared a commendation recommendation for exceptional control under provocation." She shook her head once. "Correction was enough." Tate didn't smile, but something shifted at the corners of his eyes. He tapped the folder closed. Session adjourned. No one moved for a moment. Then chairs slid back, one by one, less like dismissal, more like release, and as Rowena stood, not a single man at that table could meet her eyes. The corridor outside was wide, sterile, silent, lined with framed portraits of past commanders and plaques no one ever read. The kind of place meant to feel reverent, but always ended up feeling hollow. Rowena stepped through the double doors without hesitation. She didn't carry paperwork, no folder, no expression, just presence. Down the hall, a few administrative officers stood in small clusters, pretending not to watch. One lowered her eyes as Rowena passed. Another straightened slightly, like instinct demanded posture in her presence. Rowena didn't nod, didn't acknowledge. She just kept walking. Near the end of the hall, on a long metal bench, Riker sat alone. His sleeves were rolled, his boots were scuffed, and for the first time in 3 days, he wasn't posturing. His elbows rested on his knees, his hands hung between them like weights, shoulders hunched in on themselves. Not from fatigue, from realization. He didn't look up until she was almost beside him. His voice came out low, dry. "Guess you got your revenge." Rowena didn't slow, but she did pause, half a step past him. She turned just enough to see him in the corner of her vision. "No," she said quietly. "I got accuracy." And with that, she kept walking. No victory strut, no triumphant look back. Just the sound of her footsteps echoing down the hallway, fading beneath the low hum of overhead lights. At the far end, Commander Tate leaned against the elevator bay, arms folded, eyes tracking her approach. He didn't speak at first, just studied her gait like a field report in motion. When she reached him, he exhaled. "He'll spin it. Say the whole thing was personal. She met his eyes, calm, level. It wasn't. Tate nodded. I know. That's why it worked. The elevator doors opened behind him with a soft ding. Rowena stepped in, turned. Next roster is up Monday. I want the first slot. You'll have it. The doors slid shut between them. And with that, Rowena Vale disappeared into the next hour, the next task, the next obligation. No fanfare, no applause, just one less problem walking behind her. By afternoon, the trench course looked different. Same mud, same ropes, same sun baking off the edges of the shallow pit. But everything felt quieter, like the ground itself remembered what happened the day before and had chosen not to laugh this time. Recruits were lined up again, same mixed pairs, same instructors, calling times, but the posture had shifted. Fewer jokes, less swagger. Everyone moved with the kind of caution that didn't come from fear. It came from understanding. Rowena stood near the same point where she'd gone face first into the sludge 24 hours earlier. Her boots were planted just behind the tape line. Her hands were behind her back, and her uniform, crisp and dry, didn't have a single trace of yesterday on it. Behind her, Torres walked up slowly, coffee in one hand. No one's filming today, he said, half whispering, because they don't want to be in the next one. Looks cleaner out here, he added, scanning the pit. She gave a small nod. Clean's just perspective. A whistle blew. First team went in, crawling fast, shoes slapping through shallow muck. Rowena didn't look away. She just called the next name on the roster. No speeches, no attention, just control. Reclaimed in full. And this time, no one dared follow her too closely. Would you have stayed silent if someone humiliated you in front of your entire unit? Do you think control means walking away? Or standing still until the room shifts around you? Drop your answers in the comments. I read every single one. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon so you never miss the next mission. Share this video with someone who still thinks silence is weakness. Our next story is already waiting on your screen. Go watch it now, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place.